So I'm Dustin with the Stutsman County Soil Conservation District. I am currently a director for the North Dakota Employees Association. And today we're going to talk a little bit on the history of the soil conservation districts and how they got started, and then what we are currently doing and trying to promote. So let's go back to the early 1900s. A young soil survey named Hugh Ham Bennett was doing some soil, like he just started coming out of college, and he was starting to notice that when he's out doing his surveying, that there was a soil erosion with the changing of soil practices. And what we're going to get into is in that time period, he was preaching about how the current farming practices were degrading soils. The last 20 years, as he's working for a soil, he's noticed that the soils are starting to erode. The wind's blowing them away, water's washing them away, and stuff like that with the current farming practices. And what was happening in the 20s, the early 1920s now, is wheat prices got really good. So farmers are working their ground. And when they were working the ground back then, it was with a plow. In the early 1900s, it was horses and plows. And then they started coming out with better farm equipment. And then they were, making great money off their wheat prices and everything like that. And with that, wheat prices started to come down in the late 20s and the early 30s. And what farmers did then is they plowed up more ground to try to recoup their losses that they were taking hits on it. And then in the early 30s, 31, I think, the Great Depression came and the stock market crashed. And then farmers were leaving their crops, they were leaving their ground, they were going to look for other jobs. They just weren't able to make it as they went. And what happened with that is the ground was left there unplowed, open, bare, nothing. Like nobody was farming them anymore, anything like that. So, as the soils dried up, the winds took the soil. The water, when it finally started raining, washed those soils away, degraded it. They were losing all their principles that were in the soil. Everything was getting dried, everything like that, because it was all grassland back then. And then it turned into just soil, bare soil out there, dirt clumps, everything like that was out there. And then so in 1935, Bennett had been preaching for the last 20 years that we needed to do something. And he finally was in front of Congress talking about, hey, we have soil issues. It's degrading. We need to protect the soil. It's what, keeps our population alive. They grow the food, everything like that. And while he was in front of Congress, he was stalling them because he knew there was a dust storm coming. And these dust storms came across the country. They weren't just little ones that blew up in the state and then, like we had 4 years ago. These ones would come from North Dakota all the way down, through Washington, D.C. They would go from Washington all the way across the country, from north to south, east to west. And he knew that there was one on the way, so he was stalling the Congress to be able to show them what he wanted to show. And what ended up happening is they noticed that the skies were starting to get dark and everything like that. So all the congressmen got up and started looking at the windows. And then he started, testifying in front of them. This is why we need it. And what ended up happening is all the congressmen at that time voted to approve the start of what was called the Soil Conservation Services. It was the SCS, which is now known as the Natural Resource Conservation Districts. And Natural Resource Conservation Services, the NRCS, which is the federal government. And Bennett was the first chief of the operation. And so as Bennett was promoting the soil erosion issues throughout the next couple of years since he was the chief of it, he noticed that they needed to have a more locally driven is what he wanted. So instead of just him going out with his few crew, he just didn't have enough people. So he's like, we need it to be more locally driven. And they did not. So President Franklin Roosevelt put into motion to have it locally led, known as the soil conservation districts throughout the country. So it's not just within, North Dakota or any other specific state. It was throughout the country. So that was 1937. And in 1937, North Dakota's first districts were in Kidder County, Slope Hettinger County, and Arnengard Alexander, which is now known as McKenzie County. So those are the first 3 districts in 1937 that adopted soil conservation districts. Just a little more history on Hugh Bennett. Today he's known as the father of soil conservation for his promotion and what he did throughout the his 50 years that he worked in soil conservation and trying to promote it and push to have the districts and to push to try to save the resource that we were degrading. In North Dakota, there's currently 54 soil conservation districts across the state. That's almost one per county. And I believe nationwide, there's over 3,000 districts. Each district has their own mission statement, so not every one of them is the same. Like, yes, we all try to hit on, what soil conservation districts are meant to do, and we're meant to promote conservation, protection, improvement, and profitability on agricultural land in North Dakota. So we all do hit those, but we all have different mission statements in a different direction. Like, one county might be a little more focused on education for, local schools instead of trying to, promote the practices on the ground as much. So they're all working for the common goal, but they all have their own special, unique things that they're doing in their districts. So what do soil conservation districts do? Well, back in the 30s, originally, it was to plant trees across the country. And what the goal was is it's going to slow that wind down and be able to keep that soil on your land and not allow it to blow away. And this is still a big factor today. We still try to promote, tree belts on our ground, and that's the main income for most of our districts in the state is doing tree plantings and selling trees. Other practices back then and still known today is they were doing terracing, which would slow the rains down as they come down the hillsides. Grass waterways, making it so that it flows through the grass and the grass can absorb that water instead of eroding the soil away, stuff like that. Districts provide resident leadership by helping landowners address a wide range of local agricultural and urban issues needed. So it's not just working on agricultural ground anymore. So we are working in the cities and trying to get conservation done in the cities and everything like that. So the focus is largely still on agricultural ground, but we do work with a lot of city entities now to try to promote agriculture in urban areas. Equipment, just to give an idea. So districts will have all sorts of different equipment to promote soil health practices. And so some of the equipment, that come to mind that we have, and then I'll talk about some others, is we have a no-till drill. And this is to promote no-till planting. So instead of that producer working that ground up and getting it black and everything like that before seeding, they are going out with this no-till drill and leaving that crop residue that's already there. And the reason for that is most of the districts are going to promote soil health principles, and there's 5 principles of soil health. Minimizing soil disturbance, so trying not to work up that ground as much. Maybe if you worked it up 3 times to get it where you wanted it, maybe we can get it down to 1 time of working it up. Soil armor, so leaving what's on there, so leaving your residue that's on there, maybe planting a cover crop to be able to protect what is there and not allowing it to blow away. Plant diversity. We promote multi-cropping systems. So instead of just corn, soybeans, we promote trying to put, wheat in there, or maybe try to do some peas or do some barley or something like that, something different to get a rotation of crops instead of doing a double crop or a monocrop. So a lot of people do just soybeans and stuff like that. We try to promote different plants to go in there, as those different plants help that soil stay stable and give different nutrients to it. Continual live root, continual live plant. So trying to get a cover crop on after we have seeded your cash crop. So with this, it's really easy to do it with wheat or barley because that comes off pretty early and you're able to get a cover crop in for the fall. But there are producers now that are trying to promote they're flying on cover crops into their soybeans and into their corn, and then allowing it to grow up in between. And what that does is it leaves that root on there to help protect that soil. And then it also provides organic matter as it dies and goes back into your soil. And then the last one is integrating livestock. And if you have the cover crops in between your crops, or if you got corn stover, stuff like that, you can integrate your livestock out there. You know, back the soils back in the many years ago that's all they had was livestock to be able to rotate through. So the bison would come through, graze everything, and then move on. And that was your soil disturbance, was their hooves coming through. And we're just trying to imitate what the old system used to be like. You know, there used to be many different types of grasses across the state. So that's why we're trying to integrate multi-diversity plantings and stuff like that, is to get back to what North Dakota had and what it was. I mean, we'll never get back to the grass and stuff like that, but if you can do that with your crops and then mimic it with livestock that we have nowadays, at least we're getting as close as we can to it. And then those cattle leave the fertilizer and manure laying around on the ground for the nutrients and everything like that. So yeah, we got the no-till drill. We have an interseeder. We have an 8-row 8700 White's corn planter. That's 30 inches on center. And then what we did is we had a manufacturer put a couple extra hookups on 15 inches off center. So then we can move that planter, after we plant, we can move that planter over 15 inches and go in with a inner crop. And that's your cover crops and stuff like that. And just trying to do that to give more diversity to that corn and stuff like that. We also have an aerator, land aerator. So it's just like a lawn aerator. You know, a lot of people go into their lawn and they'll aerate it in their towns and stuff like that. And the reason they do that is it produces a flush of grass. And that's the same thing for this land aerator. You go out into a pasture and you aerate it. They say it gives a 10% boost in your crops that are there. So you're breaking up the roots that are there and creating new shoots and everything like that, and have fresh grass come up through. We also have a composter on hand, a manure composter. So, you know, a lot of people will talk about stockpiling their manure and everything like that. Well, if you have that composter, it breaks down that manure a little bit more, and you can kill those, you know, the grass seeds off and everything like that. And then you spread that amendment back to your soil later on in the fall, more than likely, and you have fertilizer and everything like that. And it turns almost into a soil type amendment. Like it feels like soil and everything like that when you're done with it. Other districts, you know, they have pipeline POWs. So that's for livestock producers to be able to put water lines down on your rangelands. And the reason for that is to try to get freshwater cattle. Cattle produce way better on freshwater than they would if they're going down to creeks and streams and everything like that. So just adding all of these practices together, not just on cropland, not just in rangelands and everything like that. There's soil sampling services that are offered. So some districts will go out and do soil sampling, and that, you know, that's for nutrient management plan. So put that fertilizer down where you need it, or, you know, so you're not over fertilizing areas. Your soil can only hold so much fertilizer. And if it rains and you got too much fertilizer in there, more than likely it's going to wash down into the water systems and then affect your water quality and your lakes and streams and your waterways and stuff like that. So it's just there's a list that goes on and on and on about practices that soil conservation districts can help promote for landowners and try to work with landowners on.
Dustin.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Are these equipment, are they available for rent, or do you use these as a demonstration project for farmers?
So they are usually used for rent. Everything we have has a price on it for renting. And then some districts will actually come out and do it for you, the service. So like if you hired them to come out and plant that, say you were putting CRP grasses in or something like that, or you're planting grasses in marginal ground, they can come out and do it for you for their fee too. But there is also research farms and projects that go on. So Minokan Farm has a research farm that's been going on for many years. That they've had out there. That's a demonstration. It's what it is. So they're trying things to see what types of results they get. You know, they worry about the yields and stuff like that, but it's not like hey, we're focusing on how can we get our highest yields. We want to know if this system will work for what we're trying to promote. So Jamestown, we currently have a demonstration plot with the Jamestown High School. So we're working with the Career Tech Center, and they got about 15 acres, I believe, up there. And so, we've done cover crops up there. We've done wheat, we've done soybeans, we've done corn. Last year we did a full season cover crop for the whole year. So I planted it in the spring for them. And then, the school's able to use that area. And then we got a pollinator planting. So it's kind of both districts. Some districts have their own, demonstration plots. And then there's a lot of that are working with other schools and stuff like that on trying to be able to show the students what it is. And maybe they can actually see the farm equipment that we're using. Or not just us, I guess, all farmers are using, and trying to promote for conservation. So most of them are for rent though. Like if you needed a pipe plow, you could go rent that pipe plow, and then they would bring it out to you with how much footage of pipe you need and everything like that. And then it's just based off a per foot rate that they have. So they are all you just have to contact your local soil conservation district to find out what they have. A lot of districts have websites and stuff that you can go find. Just type in, say it's Stutsman County. You just look up Stutsman County Soil Conservation District and it'll pop up. And they have a list of what they have for services. Other things that, so we talked about the education a little bit, but there's a lot more just to that. So there's adult education, which districts promote workshops and tours and stuff like that. So if we're working in an area and we're seeing, hey, we need to get more grazing participation, maybe we'll hold a workshop on somebody that's put in a multi-grazing cell system, and then invite all of the landowners to come out there and tour it and see what he's doing, and hopefully get some ideas and be able to bring that back. Multi-cell rotational grazing systems, just a system that, say you had 4 cells and maybe we broke it down into 12 cells, and then they're in there for a shorter amount of time, and then you push them to the next cell, and then they don't come back to that cell that you grazed for a minimum of like over 30 days. And the reason for that is it's rest and recovery. So you're allowing those plants to be able to grow back without being grazed. If you constantly leave those cattle in one cell, they're probably going to keep regrazing the stuff that they've already grazed, because it's a nice soft type of grass that's regrowing. And the other stuff is just going to grow, and then it has the competition for weeds and other stuff to move in. So, we'll promote those at workshops. We've held ladies' egg nights before. A lot of districts do that, or they do an egg night. They bring in a speaker to talk about some sort of egg issue or something like that, and then usually serve supper and have some other workshop games going on and stuff like that. Pollinator planting. So we do a lot of urban, Stutsman County, and other districts, urban conservation. So we hold a rain barrel workshop, and we limit it to the amount of participants, but they come in and they get to talk about or paint a rain barrel that they want to put in front of their house or on their downspout or by their garden. And then we bring in a person, like last year we brought in South Dakota soil health specialist, and he talked about his no-till gardening that he's doing and his cover crops and stuff like that he's putting in. So we talk about a little bit of conservation in there also, all urban stuff, so that people can see we can do this stuff within the city, and might not have a huge impact, but it's a start. Pollinator workshops, districts hold that all the time. I know like Cass County does little pollinator pots that people can put in front of their homes and stuff like that. So there's all sorts of urban stuff going on too. And then we do the districts do a lot of education for students, starting with Envirothon. Envirothon's supported by quite a few districts throughout the state. And, they support the teams and stuff like that. And then that's 9th through 12th graders, and they're learning about current issues that are affecting the country, not just North Dakota, but the country. And then they are getting to go through, 5 workstations that they get to learn about. And then we bring that even to 6th graders with our eco-ed. And eco-ed is so they're covering 5 topics also in eco-ed, and it's a day for the 6th graders to get out, and they get to rotate through them and then learn about them. And then they have to take a test to see it. They do a post-test and a pre-test to see if they're gaining knowledge from this, and that's how we keep the funding going for that. But then egg in the classroom, that's with extension. We help support that, and so that's with third graders. They get to come in and we promote what our district does. So we talked about watersheds is what we did, and then there's a bunch of other entities that are there that are talking about, food and everything like that. We read to students K through 5th. Currently, we go and K first and second, kindergarten and first graders. We go and read to them. 5th graders, we go and talk to them in the school. 8th graders, we have a STEM event that we put on. I know libraries are always looking for people to come in. We've gone into libraries. We've gone and worked with parks and done some workshops with them where we set up a soil tunnel where kids can walk through it and see what's under the soil. You act like you're under the ground. So you're seeing molds, you're seeing the worms, you're seeing microorganisms, you're seeing roots of plants and stuff like that. So there's other districts that are doing way more than just what we're doing here. There's districts that's all they are is some, they have an education program manager and stuff like that. And so it's just getting out and working with kids and trying to show them conservation and different needs and why we need to focus on, protecting soil and water quality. And that's another, way to enter districts is some of them have watershed coordinators, like Stutsman County. We're lucky enough to have one. I think there's 19 coordinators throughout the state in North Dakota through the Department of Environmental Quality. And, we work in a watershed currently, to promote better management practices. And this is where we were kind of talking about, limiting your tilling and stuff like that. But it's also maybe you're planting grass in those saline areas that are really hard to get crops to grow into. Their marginal grounds are not making you money. Well, let's get those back to grass and growing into grass. And, 3 years down the road, you can hay those or you can graze them or do what you want with them to try to make them a little more productive than they are just trying to plant a crop into them. Promote waterways, grazing systems, stuff like that. So it's just the coordinators are just another avenue for producers to be able to come in. And then we do have some cost share opportunities. In most districts, you come in and you talk about these soil health projects, and those people that are working there are going to try to find, if somebody's looking at trying to need some cost share or something like that, there's a lot of other entities out there, and we'll try to, put you in the right direction to maybe get some cost share and help those, those producers out so they're not doing all this stuff on their own and everything like that. But yeah, it's promoting soil health and trying to switch practices and stuff like that. Is pretty much what I got for the history of the districts and what we're currently doing.
Thank you, Dustin. Do soil conservation districts ever hire high school students for summer employment or kids right out of college? What's that like?
Yeah, so every district, that's planting trees does need to have some summer help. Usually tree planting starts in May, so it does work out for college and stuff like that. But high school also, we hired a college student and a high school student last year. And we currently have a high school student that's at the Career Tech Center, James River Valley Career Tech Center, that's doing an intern with us. So she comes into our class or comes into our office 2 hours a day for the rest of the school year here. And then we'll hire her to do our help with our tree planting and summer crew also. And so it's just an internship. So she's learning what we're doing. We're teaching her how to create tree plans. We redid our shelving in our tree cooler, so she got to help us with that. So she gets to see what we're doing in a day-to-day environment and teaching her. And then she's, this one is currently going to go to either SDSU or Valley City State, I think, to go for natural resource or environmental science. So, hopefully it's just a way to, if districts can get kids in to direct them to get into this type of career field and help out. But yeah, there's districts always are, there's other districts that have, more interns than we do here at Stutsman. But yeah, they're always looking for people to hire. So if kids are willing to help out, they could go and talk to their soil conservation districts and maybe be able to get onto that tree crew and be able to help plant trees and lay fabric, or maybe they got other summer jobs that you can do too.
Well, thank you so much, Dustin. Now we want to encourage all you teams out there to go and visit with your local soil conservation district. We're actually we've contacted all the counties and they are waiting for you guys to call them and set up a meeting. So we want all the teams from the North Dakota Envirothon to go and meet in person or virtually with their local soil conservation district. So let me know if you have any questions on how to set that up. Thank you.